Welcome to Scandinavian MIND Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, the Fabricant secures a $14 million funding to build the wardrobe of the metaverse. We talk about the plans for our cover star, Kerry Murphy, and what this means for digital fashion. Also, Mark Zuckerberg and his Meta opens a physical store selling virtual reality products for the metaverse, another frontier. I have also tried out the new Swedish audio app, Anyone, and I'm going to let my co-hosts interview me about that. I'm Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm here, as usual, with Roland, Philippe, Kretzschmar, editor-at-large, and our junior editor, Erik, Sedin. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wonderful. So Art Week in full swing. We're not going to cover that except to plug our little things to do at Art Week that we published the other week. So Stockholm Art Week, if you want to know what to do, read Roland's recommendations. Have you seen anything just quickly before we start, Roland, that you want to mention?
Yeah, I would like to recommend Michelle Blade at Loyal Gallery, Odengatan 3 in Stockholm. Fantastic painter.
Good stuff. Wonderful. What else is going on? I guess there's something going on with Twitter. I don't know if we should mention that. We probably haven't talked about that enough, right? In media, in business podcasts around the world. I don't know.
You mean the cocaine tweet? Or what are you referring to? Can you enlighten me, Konrad?
Elon Musk is buying Twitter. I think everyone knows. I'm kind of sick of hearing it because every podcast I'm listening to is about this topic. But what I didn't know
was
a
50-minute analysis. Let's deep dive into this now.
No, please don't. But I had not seen the cocaine tweet as of this morning. So maybe we should just plug that. What was it? I didn't see it. I still didn't see it. You just mentioned it.
I mean, sometimes he just tweets weird stuff. Maybe when he's up late at night smoking weed. I don't remember the exact tweet now, but basically he said he wanted to buy Coca-Cola so he could put cocaine back into the recipe. And you know, it's funny. I saw this morning actually on internet the first original Coca-Cola bottle, which contained 3.5 grams of cocaine. So there you go. True story, you know.
Sounds expensive for him.
I am sure there will be no shortage of debates about what it means when the richest peoples in the world can just sort of take over companies this casually, this fast. But we'll leave that for another podcast and dive into our first bigger story. It was recently announced that the Fabricant, which is, of course, the cover of our latest issue, we had the cover Kerry Murphy, the founder Kerry Murphy as a digital avatar cover star of Scandinavian Mind issue 3. The Fabricant have now secured a $14 million Series A funding to build, quote, the wardrobe of the metaverse. And I think this was timely of sorts. Very interesting to see that, you know, the concepts that he is talking about in our interview, which also was published in this podcast feed earlier this week. So that makes it even more timely. But he's now kind of gotten the muscles to do this thing, which I find really interesting. So the funding was led by Greenfield One with participation of Ashton Kutcher, which is kind of an interesting take, and Guy Osiris Sound Ventures and others. There's also a DAO in there helping to fund this thing, which I find really interesting. And I think what we're going to see here is the Fabricant kind of launched as this is sort of direct to avatar fashion brand. That's how they first marketed themselves. The co-founder Amber Sluton is a digital designer herself. But basically what Kerry talks about in our interview as well is this kind of studio, this platform that he's building for other designers to come in and use their digital textiles, use their software, their technology to be able to design clothes themselves. So I think kind of the underlying message here is that I think they kind of want to be, I don't know what you would describe it as, kind of like the infrastructure for a new digital fashion industry, which I find really exciting. So I think we're going to see another development of the Fabricant with this funding. What do you guys think?
No, I think it's interesting, and just a quick comment that I mean, we had this kind of backlash of NFTs and digital fashion early this winter, and then it's kind of coming back again. I just saw this morning actually that Nike and Artifact's latest collab around Murakami. I mean, the Murakami NFT sneaker has sold for $130,000. You know, it's kind of the hype is it's not a hype anymore. It's here to stay. You know, and so yeah, I'm very curious about the developments, and I love this direct to avatar as a marketeer. You know, I love that kind of. It's a new segment, a new demographic.
No, for sure. I think it's a good reference with Artifact. I mean, that was the first drop, I think, since Nike acquired Artifact, which of course is the French digital sneaker brand. Um, but I also loved. I think the Fabricant was the first one to talk about direct to avatar, and I think this. I think I mentioned the last episode that I was doing a talk for H&M Group about this. So obviously the legacy fashion industry, the physical fashion industry, and I kind of underscoring that uh, what's interesting with this is, and Erik, you wrote about this as well in the issue, that we're talking about a separate industry. It runs separately, or at least in parallel to sort of the old fashion industry. Uh,
Mm.
the Fabricant does not do any physical iterations of their clothing. We've seen quite a lot of sort of crossover projects and so forth. But what Kerry is talking about, that this is going to be a separate industry. It's going to be an industry that's potentially is going to be bigger than the physical fashion industry, because eventually the metaverse and metaverse spaces will be bigger. Since they are digital, they can be infinitely bigger than the physical world. And this is actually something to take seriously.
Yeah, and you can't blame Kerry and the Fabricant for being like too shy with their estimations. They're saying in this press release that in 2025, that's like tomorrow. That's like 3 years. He's
Yeah.
saying 100 million people will wear metaverse ready like pieces of clothing from them that are minted.
Mm.
So this gets me going, like 100 million people in 3 years. This means, if you're asking me, I think like this kind of funding and this kind of like big breakthrough for Fabricant means that they will probably enter some kind of gaming platform. And if you read this press release too, Epic Games, they have given the Fabricant a mega grant. It doesn't really show exactly what that means, but since the Fabricant is using the Unreal Engine that Epic Games uses, I think when when the Fabricant are saying this, in 3 years we will have 100 million users, or 100 million people will be wearing our stuff. Probably means they know something we don't. They're probably on some kind of platform already where they know 100 million people will be at. So really interesting and really cool to see where these clothes, there's these digital pieces of clothes will be. Where will they be worn? Where in what setting and stuff. So it's not, like you said, direct to avatar, but where will these avatars be? It's not going to be a Instagram AR filter for sure.
No, I think that was like the initial vision with the Fabricant. And I think the initial vision was actually like AR. That in the future we'll all be wearing some really mundane, simple outfits, but when we put on our AR glasses, we will be able to express ourselves, and people will see who we really are, in the sort of digital layer upon our clothes. So we're obviously not there yet, and they're talking less about that. I think what you're alluding to, Erik, is probably where it's going. We already see Fortnite, Roblox, these types of places selling digital skins, so forth. I think we're going to see brands like the Fabricant who are working with a sort of legacy fashion industry. That's been a strong part of their brand, and the projects that they've released, that they've been working with Tommy Hilfiger and Adidas and Prada, no, not Prada, but Puma and other brands, sort of helping them into the metaverse. So there's kind of a bridging aspect of what they're doing that I think is really interesting.
Mm.
On one hand, though, I think it could be like a transitional thing. I think we've talked about on this podcast before the sort of the notion of things being skeuomorphic. I think we're in this sort of skeuomorphic phase of digital fashion, where when the Fabricant or Carrie talks about how they're designing clothes, you're talking about bringing in traditional textile designers, if you see some of the collabs they've released with Tommy and Puma and so forth, the products they look like physical fashion. It's very similar. It looks like a digital, like a very beautiful rendering of something that has a physical, uh, um, uh, like a physical version of it. But I mean, that's obviously not where this is gonna stop, because if
No.
something is digital, it doesn't have to look like traditional textile. What even is a digital textile? Doesn't It's just like a surface, like a like a paint or like a thing. We don't have to do that. If we're completely digital, we can be dragons and other creatures like
I
Yeah.
think
like
that Konrad is the element which I'm currently most interested in is the shape shifting of identity.
mm,
So, I mean, we're getting old, right, Konrad? So you and I, we when we have one sense of identity, one view of identity.
sure.
Erik has another view on identity, right? Since he's younger, and then I look at my kids. I mean, for them, identity is multidimensional.
Mm,
So they have their core identity, obviously, but then they shift shape and form, as you say, depending on the platform where they are. So they might have,
mm,
even on Roblox, there are different games, so they have different identities in different games, and then you have different platforms. I mean, ultimately, you're talking about, the scale of digital. I think we should also look at the scale of identities. That when my daughter, who is now 11, when she's 21, she might have 21 different identities, depending on the platforms, the metaverses, the
mm,
channels, etc. She's present on.
And also, like that's we just launched our podcast this Wednesday with the Kerry Murphy, called "The Values in the Metaverse," and he talks about that how
Mm.
when she's 21, she will not only have 21 identities, she will also have money of her own. So it will be very like natural for her to spend money on digital assets and digital
Mm-hmm.
clothes, because like you said, your 11-year-old daughter, or like Konrad, your daughter, she's 10, I think. They don't really have the money now to like their own money to purchase and spend on virtual goods and digital goods. But when they have their own money and when they go to bars or they go to concerts on a weekly basis, that's where they're going to spend their money. And I think that's what Carrie said too, that with your identities, imagine if you have 21 identities, it's going to be quite expensive to buy clothes for all those 21.
But this is
exactly.
now this is interesting. My daughter came to me the other day and she said, I have this TikTok account where I film myself playing on Adopt Me on Roblox. And my first goal is to get 10,000 followers, because then I can start to earn money.
Yeah, yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah, so I think she will earn money far earlier than at 21, and far earlier
Yeah.
than when I earned
Good
money.
point. Good
I
point.
was a lazy boy when I grew up, but I no, but I think it's kind of interesting that there's a multidimensionality to economics as well
Mm,
in the metaverse spaces, right?
Yeah.
There's this blurring line between, if we stay to Roblox, the Robux currency, and then you have the fiat currencies, the cryptocurrencies. All of this is kind of blurring now, also, and it's just so interesting that it's, in addition to, let's say, the cosmetic point of views we might have of how digital fashion looks like. I think what's beneath it, I mean, as we just said, the elements of identity and the mechanics around economics, etc. I think that's what's really fascinating about the Web3 space. Like it's the decentralization of identities as well.
Hmm. No, super interesting, and we're currently doing research on trying to find all the data we can find on this to cover this more. I think one data point that I found was Highsnobiety online magazine released a report on gaming, fashion and gaming last year, and it said that I can't remember the numbers, like 10 or 15% of gamers were using other genders that they're other than their physical gender. And it was kind of natural to play around with genders and identity. It goes straightly into what you're saying, Roland. And I think already the high snobiety target group, they were surveying their own readers, and obviously not 11-year-olds, but people who are actually buying stuff. I think 26% of them were already buying digital skins in the vicinity of like 20 to 50 dollars or euros per month. So I mean, this is a real thing, and I think this funding shows that. I think we're going to see a kind of stark development. I'm super excited to see what you're alluding to, Erik. That these kind of startups we're seeing. I mean, the Fabricant comes from the fashion industry. They are fashion operatives. They are obviously a tech company, but they define themselves as a fashion company. They collaborate with fashion brands, with textile experts, with designers. It's going to be really interesting to see, what use cases they can come up with. Because as you say, Erik, I'm sure they have plans for this. If it's going to be Fortnite, if it's going to be Roblox, wherever it's going to be, it's going to be for real. It's going to be a real market. It's going to be a real money that people buy for this stuff. So super interesting to cover.
And maybe in the show notes, we can add a link. There's an article I also shared on my LinkedIn this morning on the decentralized selves, basically this element of the dissolvement of identities in Web3 spaces.
We'll do that. Good stuff. All right, moving on to our next story. Mark Zuckerberg opens a physical store. The world's most famous social media entrepreneur is now into a physical retail, which is kind of funny. Erik, you've been looking into this. What's happening really?
Yeah, and we don't really need to introduce who Meta are, but like you said, they're opening their first, and it's a permanent retail store. It's a physical store. It's not a pop up. But what I thought was interesting was where they decided to open it. Their Meta. They could open it on Oxford Street or Fifth Avenue or I don't know, Rodeo Drive, and I don't know what the Paris one. I haven't been to Paris. I don't know that one. They have the pull. They have the money to open wherever they want, but they open it in Silicon Valley, next to their like Reality Labs campus. So it's basically in-house, So it's kind of there's kind of like a baby step, a really small baby step for them because they're kind of like really trying their wings here. And, I haven't been to Silicon Valley. I don't know how it is, but I have this perception that it's just, there's a few people there, but mostly it's just checkout stations, like robots talking to you. So I'm like, what people will really visit this store, Like, will it be like school class field trips going there occasionally, or like, I don't know, Meta, like employees, their families coming to visit, like, oh, look at our cool store here. So I think it doesn't really say much about where they put the store, I don't think there will be a lot of like organic people there. He's going there out of excitement to try it out.
Given
I think it's a small first step.
Given the real estate prices of San Francisco, I think it will show that there are actually physical people living in Silicon Valley, Erik. We'll have to book a field trip, but I think what this means is, they are obviously doubling down on their devices, and this is an important step for Meta for selling the metaverse. People need to use physical devices to experience it, and I think one of the frustrations of Facebook is, of course, that they're so dependent on Android and iOS to reach out to people, and this is part of his strategy to break away from that. But I think this is also interesting to see because people are buying. My daughter, to take that example again, every day she is talking about she wants a virtual reality headset. It's on the top of her wish list right now. So this is also like a real thing that's kind of happening underneath. I think the mainstream media, I think people in general don't think about this, but I think this is a kind of a quiet revolution happening that will enable these sort of metaverse concepts that we are talking about on this podcast. So this is obviously a first step. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a test that they're going to roll out on Oxford Street and all these places that you mentioned, Erik.
Yeah,
Can I ask you out of curiosity, do you still use Facebook?
I do. It happens.
What do you use it
I
for?
wish I didn't have to. For example, Scandinavian Mind, we publish stuff there, so I have to go in there daily.
Yeah, no,
and
but okay,
share
but
articles.
as a private person.
No. That's the thing. It's strictly professional, or it could be, that's where I have my like friend group chats because they've been they're like decades old now. So of course we could move them to WhatsApp or to like the Messenger app, but I don't know. Like I only use the Messenger app, which belongs to Facebook. I guess it's kind of separated, but it is Facebook, I guess. And then professionally, I use it to like buy stuff on their marketplace, which I think is pretty good, and like sell a couch or something.
What about you, Konrad?
No, I mean, I think I use Instagram and WhatsApp every day. So in that sense,
No, but I'm
using.
talking about Facebook.
No, I get it. No, I think I'm in there maybe once a week, and it's only because I get some kind of notification someone has texted me or something. I guess technically you're then on the Messenger app, so that's not Facebook. So, but if you have kids in school, or if you're part of a local community, as for instance with my place in the archipelago, you kind of have to be there because that's where that's where it lives for me, because there are these message boards and stuff you have to keep updated on to know what happens locally. That's the only reason. How about you?
Yeah.
I only use it. I mean, sometimes I share articles or when we have the weekly podcast, but I use it every day for birthday wishes. It's the best feature of Facebook. It's amazing.
It is
Every
great.
morning I wake up, I do my routine, I go into Facebook, I see whose birthday it is, I put some kind messages, a bit of love. And it's funny because it makes people so happy, and I have like, I don't know, 2,500 people on Facebook. So people I have randomly met, maybe once or twice in life, close friends, relatives. I mean, it's all kinds of people, right? But I love that feature because even if I've met someone once 10 years ago and I greet them on their birthday once a year, it adds a level, some human connectivity. Yes. So yeah, and they actually took away this feature a year and a half ago, and it broke internet. I mean, people got really, really upset, so they had to take back this feature.
It makes me feel bad. I stopped doing this a few years ago because it felt sort of automated, doing this, and it's kind of unpersonal to just do it because Facebook is enabling it or encouraged me to do it. But thinking about it, when it's my own birthday, I really want these wishes. So I go into that's one of the most important Facebook day of my life. I go into Facebook and read the birthday wishes. So,
but what's funny is since I do this and I've done it for years as a routine every day, it's funny because in the beginning of the morning you can see obviously the profiles where you can put the wish, and some people have blocked the option, the possibility to put in a wish. Then towards noon, around lunchtime, they have opened it up so you can actually put the wish.
Okay.
so they do exactly like you, Konrad. They go in and like, shit, I've blocked the possibility for people to comment on my profile, and they open it up.
I need the wishes. I need the love. I need the
Yes,
love.
exactly.
Yeah,
I was really disappointed. I think the last time I got like 4 in total.
Okay.
I think it's like my people, like my friends stuff, they're not on there anymore. And it could be like, I remember 5-6 years ago, like as soon as it turned 12 at midnight,
Yeah.
they would just like stream in. So
Yeah.
maybe
that's super interesting. Probably a generational thing. But taking this back to the store, which was the actual news here, maybe could this be a new version of Oculus. You know, you wake up on your birthday morning, you put on an Oculus, and you have 2,500 people waiting there in the virtual world greeting you. That would be an experience, I
That would
think.
be fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
Lots
Looking
of
forward
love.
to that.
Yes.
And like you said, Konrad, going back to the store, I think the store looks great. You know, bright backlit wooden panels and shelves. You know, that will also sell the Oculus goggles and the headsets, and they also have their video calling device Portal, and they also have the Ray-Ban smart sunglasses that we've written about before. I think it's good that they have a place that looks kind of nice. It's kind of light and smart and modern, that where people can go and try out these things. I know Meta said they're saying this store is the gateway to the metaverse, which is really cringe when they put it like that. But I guess it kind of is. Like, people don't really like people that aren't excited about the metaverse, or people don't even get it because they haven't tried it. So, and this place, let's say they have one in Oxford Street or whatever, they might even have them at airports, let's say. People just go in there and trying them and seeing like, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, this is what a virtual meeting would be like through their Portal device. And hey, this is what going into gaming or any kind of metaverse platform would look like through Meta. So I think it's good for people to get like dip their toes in and getting to know this stuff. But I think they need to get away from Silicon Valley, first of all.
All right, just to end this podcast with, I just want to share an experience with a new startup, a new audio app called Anyone. We've had the founder, David Orlik, on the podcast last year. So now finally I was able to try the service out, and I thought it could be an interesting way for us to expand the podcast as well. I'm going to get back to that, but so Anyone is a new audio app that promises that you can sort of call anyone in the world for 5 minutes. So big surprise, it's an app on the phone that lets you do a phone call. Kind of the going joke that the founder David actually said to me. But the take here is actually that they want to invite sort of leading people within different industries and have the general public, so to speak, be able to call people they don't necessarily get to reach in another setting. They can't call Bill Gates, say. I don't think Bill Gates is on the platform yet, but as an extreme example. So let's say Bill Gates will be on Anyone. He will decide that certain parts of the week, or I think anytime you can call him, it will be at a kind of cost, and you can call him for 5 minutes only, just to ask for tips and recommendations and so forth. So I've been keeping my eye on this, and last night they had a session which they call like a phone booth, which is a free session for the users, where they gather kind of people in a certain business arena or sector. And last night it was journalists and editors. So it was me, it was another journalist from Sweden, a few more ones from the New York area, producers of TV networks, writers for like The Economist and Vice, and kind of a pretty diverse group of journalists. I think the purpose here was to have these people both interact with each other, which I did, but also have sort of users of the platform reach out and talk about journalist issues. And I just want to briefly mention, because when I had this pitch to me, I was like, is this, when we talked about it the first time a year ago, Clubhouse was really all the rage, and I was thinking about like the future of audio is here. There's going to be a ton of different types of services. And it hasn't been obvious to me what Anyone is gonna what role they will have here. So it's really interesting to try it out. And as talking to the other journalists, it was like, okay, I can probably do that myself. I network kind of often, maybe not so much internationally. That was kind of interesting, but I don't think I would go on the platform specifically to do that. Maybe if it's a journalist I really admire. But what was interesting was during one part of this session, a woman called in from London. I think she had a small jewelry brand, and she asked me advice on how to reach out to magazine editors. And it got me thinking that if I would be able to say, let's set apart a portion of my week, maybe like 30 minutes after we record this show on Fridays, and invite our readers or listeners to speak to me, that would mean so much for me if I would get like the feedback from the people who are consuming our content. So that really sort of opened up my mind to this service, which I haven't really understood fully before.
But that's interesting. So the service is basically thought of to be people pay, I guess, or how do they get a hold of all?
No, so the general users will pay a fee. I think there are similar services where you kind of can pay a celebrity for a birthday greeting or something similar, kind of like that, where you pay a fee of like $5 or $10 or $15 or $50 depending on the person. And then you can call anyone anytime, right? So if they're available, they can pick up and take this call and make some extra buck. I don't think generally people like, if you're a professional, maybe you don't need that extra cash. No. So I think there's this stuff to be said about the business model, but having, enabling connections between people that you don't really have the platform to speak to. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, there's something in it for you and for the listeners of this podcast. Let's say we host a room there 30 minutes after we recorded this, or he talked to you specifically. They can, it seems like it's supposed to be the caller, the people making the call to the person you want to talk to. They're supposed to get advice from them, but it could be the other way around, right? Could be a way for letting your readers, or if you have a podcast, or if you have a magazine, if you have YouTube channel, hey, give me some feedback. What did we have a good week? Should we go back to something else? Do you want to comment anything? That could also be a really good idea.
I have a respect for the founders, so this is by no means any criticism against them, right? But I think that the way I see it, my 5 cents is that if this would be integrated into some podcast recording kind of a platform or a streaming platform, then it makes sense and you would reach the audience. But to shift between platforms, your comment, Erik, I understand and I agree. I think that was maybe also the point of Clubhouse, etc. But to be on one platform and then shift the conversation to another platform, for me, that's not going to happen. So if Spotify decides to do this, that's a killer. If YouTube decides to do this, it's a killer. What's the platform we're on? Riverside, they could do it. Could be interesting. So yeah, I wish them all the best. Again, if the founders are listening to them, this is by no means any criticism. I understand the idea, but yeah, I'm a bit skeptical to the scalability of it.
Yeah. Well, let's give it a try. I thought it was interesting. I thought I wanted to invite you guys. Let's do an experiment. Let's set up the Anyone room, or like the Scandinavian Mind room at Anyone, and then we'll invite our podcast listeners to call us at some given moment and give feedback. I think that could be super interesting. So let's try it and make it a little experiment on this pod.
Of course, I'm open-minded. I just wanted to give my 5 cents to the
Yeah, sounds great. Nice to get some criticism as well, to hear what we're doing wrong.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Just an open session for criticism.
Exactly.
Yeah. For everything, like, Roland, you should dress better. Let's have a therapy session.
I think our colleague Erik Olsson will call in and wonder why we're not working, what we're doing on this podcast. Anyways, this has been Scandinavian Mind Weekly. It's so much fun. We'll be back next week with more conversations. I'm sure we'll talk more about Stockholm Art Week, which will continue happening this weekend. Please follow us on our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. This has been great. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Ciao. Thank you. See you.